I'm making a video that's pretty out of the ordinary. I'm not even in my studio. I just watched the debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. This is June 27th, 2024. Of course, Joe Biden is horrifically evil. Something Donald Trump just said, though, is it provoked me to righteous anger against Donald Trump. What he said was so monumentally evil, it needs to be called out by the Christian leaders in America. I'm going to just play this rather than explaining it because it speaks for itself.
The Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it.
That is wickedness. That's what that is. I am a Christian. I am pro-life. I am conservative. Right, my hat, pro-God, pro-gun, pro-life, right? I'm a Christian conservative, but I will not defend this. This is wickedness to such a gross degree, and we have to condemn this as such. Right? A lot of Christians, when they see this, what do they say? Well, they say, oh, well, this is just a political strategy to beat Biden. It's just a political strategy. First of all, who is this going to win over? This isn't going to win over any liberals who are pro-choice. They're not going to hear Trump say this and think, oh, well, he's pro-life, so or he's pro-choice, I guess I'll vote for him. Right? This isn't going to win anyone over. This is not a good strategy, a good political strategy. This is moral cowardice. Listen to this again. Tell me, do you think this is a good strategy, or do you think that this is moral cowardice?
The Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it.
That is not good political strategy. That is moral cowardice, right? And a lot of people say, oh, well, he's the lesser of two evils. He's not as bad as Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not the standard of morality. Jesus Christ is the standard of morality. So we don't look at Joe Biden and say, oh, at least he's not as bad as him, so I can support this. Because not being Joe Biden isn't the standard. Jesus Christ is the standard, and this falls so unbelievably short. Donald Trump, in saying this, is guilty of child killing. Right, and so Donald Trump here, he overturned Roe v. Wade. He helped overturn that, which is a massive win for the pro-life side. But he says this. He says this after helping to overturn Roe v. Wade. There is a biblical story where there's a righteous ruler, and then he does something that's wicked. And then I want to take us through this story to help us understand how, as Christians, we should respond to when a righteous ruler does something wicked. And so Donald Trump, he helps overturn Roe v. Wade. That's a righteous thing to do. What then if he does something wicked? Do we say, oh, well, he gets a pass because he overturned Roe v. Wade? Is that what the Bible teaches? And no, it's not. And just before we get into this story, this is of King Uzziah. This is in 2 Chronicles 26. Before that, what about Jesus, right? When Jesus came to the world and he spoke to the Pharisees, they were the rulers of the day, the religious rulers. Was he saying, oh, well, at least they're not as bad as the other people, right? At least they're not that bad. They're the lesser of two evils. No, Jesus was condemning them. Jesus was condemning. He was not giving them a pass. And so with Donald Trump, as Christians, the Christian rulers, the Christian leaders in the country, Christians who have a voice, I'm calling on you to rebuke this wickedness. This is wickedness. Let's listen to this again. Let's not get caught up. This is a point I need to bring up. Christian conservatives, we have a lust to beat the Democrats. Let's not get so caught up in our lust to beat the Democrats that we turn against God. Let's not get caught up in that, and let's rebuke this wickedness.
Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. The Supreme Court...
The lesser of two evils, right? There is no bottom to that abyss. I want to read this story. I left Bible study today and then went directly to a watch party of the debate. And so we were studying this story in Bible study, and so this was fresh on my mind. Now, all the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king instead of his father. right? So that's pretty intense. You're being made king at the age of 16. Uzziah was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned 52 years, which is awesome. And then verse 4 is what's important. And he did what was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father Amaziah had done. That's awesome, right? He did what was right in the sight of the Lord. This is such a good thing. So many of the kings of Israel and Judah were wicked, but he did what was right in the sight of the Lord. How awesome is that? Unfortunately, things did not always go so well for Uzziah. As we scroll down, we jump ahead in the chapter. We get to verse 16, right? And so far, that can be likened to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump did what was good in the sight of the Lord. He overturned Roe v. Wade, but then he did something evil, right? And so what we'll see is Uzziah, he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but then he did something evil. And what should the response be from Christians? Well, let's continue reading. Verse 6. But when he was strong and his heart was lifted up to his destruction, for he transgressed against the Lord his God by entering the temple of the Lord to burn incense on the altar of incense. And so, for those of you who don't know the context, there was the temple of God in Jerusalem, and in the temple was an inner chamber, the Holy of Holies it was called. And once a year, the high priest could enter this Holy of Holies and burn incense to God. And it could only happen once a year, and it could only be the high priest. Now, Uzziah, who is the king of Israel, he's not the high priest. And so he does not have the authority to enter and to burn incense to the Lord. This is a job only for the high priest. And then, so we continue reading. So Azariah, the priest, the high priest, went in after him, and with him were 80 priests of the Lord, valiant men. And so what's going to happen, we're going to see Azariah, he does this thing which is intense, right? He goes and he brings an army of religious leaders, and what we'll see is he confronts the king. And they withstood King Uzziah, which is a scary thing to do. He's the king. He can just kill you. And they withstood King Uzziah and said to him, "It is not for you, Uzziah, to burn incense to the Lord, but for the priests, the sons of Aaron, who are consecrated to burn incense. Get out of the sanctuary, for you have trespassed. You shall have no honor from the Lord your God." This is such a significant rebuke. You shall have no honor from the Lord your God. This is how the religious leaders responded to the sin of a righteous ruler. This is how they responded. And then if you continue reading the story, King Uzziah, he becomes furious, and leprosy, it breaks out on his skin, and that leprosy is a leprosy from God, and it stays there until he dies. It's a very tragic story. But those high priests, that high priest and those priests that he brought with him, they were righteous, and they rebuked Uzziah, rightfully so, because what he did was wicked. They didn't turn and say, "Oh, the king, he's the lesser of two evils. We could have the king of the north, but, at least we got this guy." They did not say that. That would have been wicked for them to say that. Instead, they turned and rebuked, rightfully so, the King Uzziah, who did what was right in the sight of the Lord. So Donald Trump overturns Roe. That's right in the sight of the Lord, but then he sins. What do? Do we needlessly defend him? Or do we say that what he did was wicked? Do we say that this was wicked?
Just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. The Supreme Court.
I am calling on the Christians in America who have a voice to condemn Donald Trump for his wickedness. Condemn him and pray that he comes to repentance and that he does not compromise on child killing. You should not this should not be the thing you agree with Biden on, right? You say, oh, well, at least we agree on murdering babies with the abortion pill. At least that, we can agree on that, right? We can't agree on taxes. We can agree on murdering on murdering children with the abortion pill. This is wickedness, and it needs to be condemned by Christian leaders. Godspeed.